Commander Vix Talon stood on the bridge of the Centaur warship Inevitable Victory, his forearms crossed in what his species considered an expression of supreme confidence. The massive viewscreen before him displayed the blue-green orb of Earth, growing larger as his fleet of 200 ships approached their latest conquest. "Commander," said Lieutenant Zara, her tentacles rippling with barely contained excitement, "the preliminary scans of the human defense systems are complete." Vix allowed his secondary mouth to curl into what humans might recognize as a smirk. "Do tell, Lieutenant, how many of their pathetic orbital platforms will we need to destroy before they surrender?" "That is the interesting part, sir," Zara continued, her violet skin darkening slightly with amusement. "They appear to have no unified orbital defense grid, just a scattered collection of satellites, mostly for communication and weather monitoring." A deep, rumbling laugh echoed through the bridge, startling several junior officers at their stations. "You mean to tell me," Vix said between chuckles, "that these humans have achieved spaceflight but haven't bothered to defend their planet? How perfectly charming." The tactical officer, Major Krell, brought up a holographic display of Earth's military installations. "Their ground-based defenses are equally primitive, Commander. Projectile weapons, crude missiles, and something they call tanks." "Tanks?" Vix exclaimed, slapping one of his lower hands against his thigh. "Next, you'll tell me they still use combustion engines and nuclear fission." "Actually, sir," Krell began, but Vix waved him off. "No, do not tell me. Let me savor this moment." He raised all four arms dramatically. "The great Centauri Dominion, masters of 1,000 worlds, about to add another primitive species to our glorious empire. And they will not even give us a proper fight." The bridge crew shared knowing looks and suppressed grins. This was going to be the easiest conquest in their illustrious history. "Sir," called out the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human leadership, something called the United Nations Security Council." "Put them through," Vic said, straightening his ceremonial armor. "Let's see what these charming primitives have to say." The view screen flickered to reveal a group of humans seated around a large table. Vix noted with amusement their varying attire, some in military uniforms, others in formal civilian clothing. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," Vix announced, his tone dripping with condescension. "I am Commander Vix Talon of the Centauri Dominion. We have come to accept your surrender and integrate your world into our magnificent empire." One of the humans, a woman with graying hair and stern features, leaned forward. "Commander Talon, I am Secretary General Chen. We wish to negotiate terms for a peaceful—" "Negotiate?" Vix interrupted, unable to contain his mirth. "My dear primitive, you misunderstand the situation. This is not a negotiation. This is a courtesy call to inform you that your world now belongs to us. We've scanned your defensive capabilities, or should I say, your lack thereof." The bridge crew chuckled at his wit, but Chen's expression remained stoic. "Commander, I strongly urge you to reconsider your approach. Humanity has no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." "Defend yourselves?" Vix gestured to Major Krell. "With your charming little tanks? End transmission. Prepare the first wave of landing craft. Let's show these humans what real military power looks like." As the view screen went dark, Lieutenant Zara approached the command platform. "Sir, should we not at least conduct more detailed scans of their military installations? Protocol suggests—" "Protocol?" Vic scoffed. "Lieutenant, I have led 17 successful planetary conquests. I think I know how to handle a species that has barely mastered basic spaceflight. Their most advanced weapons wouldn't scratch the paint on our smallest shuttle." The fleet moved into position around Earth's orbit, their massive shapes casting shadows on the clouds below. Vix ordered the deployment of the first wave of ground forces, 100,000 Centaur warriors in their most impressive battle armor. "Send them our standard terms of surrender," Vix commanded, "and make sure to emphasize the part about how merciful we are to those who submit willingly. It adds such a nice touch of sophistication to the whole conquest, don't you think?" As the landing craft began their descent through Earth's atmosphere, Vix settled into his command chair, already composing the victory speech in his head. This would make an excellent addition to his memoirs. The first sign that something was amiss came when the humans requested a face-to-face meeting, not a surrender ceremony, but a diplomatic summit. Commander Vix found this absolutely hilarious. "They want to talk?" he announced to his bridge crew. "After we've already deployed our ground forces?" How quaint. Perhaps they wish to negotiate the color of their new Centaur flags. Lieutenant Zara cleared her throat nervously. "Sir, the human representative, Commander Blake Nash, has an unusual background. According to public records, she has extensive experience in both military operations and xenodiplomacy." "Xenodiplomacy?" Vix snorted. "They've never even met aliens before us. What possible experience could they have?" Nevertheless, he agreed to the meeting, if only for the entertainment value. "We are leaving. You have 24 hours to surrender, or we will begin planetary bombardment." As the Centaur delegation stormed out of the mountain facility, Commander Vix Talon couldn't shake the unsettling feeling gnawing at his mind. The humans had been too calm, too confident. Major Krill's energy blade had inexplicably failed during the meeting, an omen he chose to ignore, one that now seemed impossible to dismiss. Back aboard the inevitable Victory, reports streamed in confirming the first wave of Centaur ground forces had successfully established beachheads in strategic locations across the planet. Everything was proceeding according to plan, yet the meeting with the human commander, Nash, lingered in Vix's thoughts. "Sir," Lieutenant Zara called out, her voice sharp, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. They appear to be—" The ship's warning klaxons cut her off mid-sentence. Across the main view screen, strange symbols appeared, scrolling faster than even Vix's enhanced vision could track. "What is happening?" Vix barked. "Report!" Major Krill's voice wavered, a rare crack in his usual bravado. "Sir, our primary computer systems. They're being accessed by an unknown source. The humans. They're inside our network." Vix stared at the screen, the creeping horror solidifying into certainty. They had catastrophically underestimated these primitives, and Major Krill's impulsive behavior during the negotiations had handed the humans all the justification they needed to retaliate. The first ground assault reports made no sense. Centaur troops were under attack from multiple directions, yet scans showed no large human formations. "What do you mean they vanished?" Vix demanded, his secondary mouth twitching with frustration. 10,000 Centaur warriors don't simply lose track of their targets." The holographic image of Ground Commander Nexus flickered to life, his voice strained. "Sir, these humans, they strike from nowhere, inflict heavy casualties, then disappear into the terrain. Our armor holds against their weapons, but they are targeting weaknesses we didn't even know existed." Lieutenant Zara expanded tactical displays. Across multiple combat zones, small human units executed what Centaur battlefield systems labeled as irregular warfare. Yet their precision was anything but irregular. "New contact," the sensor officer shouted. "Multiple small vessels approaching landing zone 7. Vix turned to the display in disbelief. 3 human aircraft appeared, skimming just above the treetops, their designs utterly alien to Centaur databases. Based on their size, they should have been reconnaissance craft. Yet the energy readings suggested otherwise. "Sir," Lieutenant Zara's voice trembled. "You need to see this." The tactical display zoomed in, revealing a human soldier clad in advanced combat armor. Her face was partly visible through her helmet visor, and the name patch read, Lieutenant Rhea Patel. "This is Task Force Chimera," Patel's voice echoed across their comms. "Approaching target zone. Package is hot and ready for delivery. Time to show our guests why you don't bring an energy shield to a kinetic fight." Before Vix could process the message, the human aircraft released their payloads. Not bombs or plasma charges, but hundreds of tiny submunitions. These projectiles passed straight through Centaur energy shields as if they didn't exist. "Impossible!" Nexus shouted over the command channel. "Our shields are calibrated to stop any known weapon." "That's the problem," Patel's voice replied, dripping with satisfaction. "You prepared for plasma bolts, energy beams, and nukes. But sometimes old-fashioned tungsten rods at hypersonic speeds work just fine." The casualty reports flooded in. Over 2,000 Centaur warriors fell in a single strike. Their advanced battle armor, designed to withstand direct hits from capital ship weapons, was punctured effortlessly. "Pull back to defensive positions," Vix ordered. Initiate orbital bombardment of all human military installations. Sir, Major Krill interrupted, his bravado completely gone. Our targeting systems are still compromised. We can't get a weapons lock on any surface locations. More reports poured in. An armored column was ambushed in a narrow valley by what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons. Yet these projectiles tracked individual targets, curving mid-flight to strike at joints and sensors. They're in the trees, one patrol leader screamed before his signal cut off. How are they in the trees? Vix demanded. Our scanners show nothing but... His words were drowned out by a massive explosion on the tactical display. When the smoke cleared, an entire Centaur patrol had vanished, along with several acres of forest. Analysis, Vix shouted. What kind of weapon did that? Lieutenant Zara hesitated, her tentacles writhing nervously. It appears to be a fuel-air explosive, sir, but the precision suggests capabilities far beyond what we believed humans possessed. That's what happens when you rely on outdated intelligence. Patel's voice cut through their command channel again. How are you accessing this channel? Vix roared. It's quantum encrypted. Patel laughed. Quantum encryption? Please, we cracked that the moment you entered the system. Right now, we're broadcasting this conversation to every Centaur unit on the planet. They deserve to know what they're really up against. Explosions rippled across the battlefield once more. This time, the blast released electromagnetic pulses that crashed Centaur neural interfaces, leaving their warriors stumbling and blind. Sir, Zara's voice shook. Task Force Chimera is deploying something new. Energy readings are off the charts, but they don't match any known weapon signature. The display revealed Patel's team advancing through the chaos, wearing what appeared to be mechanical assist frames. These primitive-looking exosuits somehow negated the Centaur's superior strength and speed, allowing humans to engage genetically engineered warriors in close combat and win. You should see your face right now, Patel quipped, and Vix froze in horror. She had access to their bridge cameras. Well, faces, she added mockingly, that expression of dawning realization that you've made a terrible, terrible mistake. A new explosion pattern lit up the tactical display, but this time the humans weren't targeting Centaur troops. Instead, they were systematically destroying the terrain itself, collapsing bridges, cutting off supply lines, and eliminating defensible positions. They're not just fighting us, Vix whispered. They're dismantling the battlefield. For the first time in his career, Commander Vix Talon understood the meaning of defeat. They're systematically destroying their own infrastructure, Major Krill muttered, his disbelief palpable. What are they doing? They're not demolishing, Lieutenant Zara corrected, her voice barely above a whisper. They're revealing. As the dust settled, gleaming structures of advanced alloys emerged from beneath what had appeared to be primitive human buildings. Defense installations disguised as commercial centers, weapon platforms camouflaged as communications towers. Did you really think, Lieutenant Rhea Patel's voice crackled over the comms, that a species paranoid enough to split the atom less than a century after achieving powered flight wouldn't prepare for alien invasion? That we just broadcast our military capabilities to the cosmos? Commander Vix Talon stared at the tactical display in dawning horror. Hidden bases, concealed weapons, and highly trained human forces emerged across the planet. They hadn't invaded a primitive civilization fumbling toward its first contact. They had walked into the trap of a warrior species that had been preparing for this moment for generations. The revelation continued with a chilling crescendo. Thousands of seemingly innocuous satellites began transforming. Solar panels retracted, revealing weapon ports. Communication dishes rotated, exposing missile launchers. Weather monitoring arrays unfolded into targeting systems. Attention, Centaur invasion fleet, Commander Nash's voice echoed across every channel. The Solar Alliance defense grid is now online. I trust this answers your earlier questions about our orbital defenses. Lieutenant Zara's display erupted with warning indicators. Sir, detecting multiple weapon locks. Their targeting systems are far more advanced than... Impossible, Vix muttered, though the word felt hollow. Our electronic warfare is unmatched. How are they penetrating... About those defenses, Nash interrupted, amusement lacing her tone. Patel's teams weren't just engaging your ground forces, they were uploading viruses tailored to your shield generators. You should have wondered why we struck so precisely. Major Krill's hands trembled over his console. Sir, shield efficiency is plummeting fleet-wide. The virus is spreading through our network like a living organism. Then came the first salvo. Earth's orbital defense grid lit up the night with thousands of projectiles, each accelerated to relativistic speeds by electromagnetic launchers cleverly disguised as civilian infrastructure. The Centaur fleet's compromised shields offered no resistance. 15 ships destroyed, Zara reported, her voice wavering. Another 30 critically damaged. Sir, their weapons are using our own shield frequencies to enhance penetration. How? Vix demanded, his claws digging into the command rail. We told you, Nash replied. We detected your approach 3 months ago. Plenty of time to analyze your tech and develop countermeasures. Did you think those weather satellites were just tracking storms? On the tactical display, more hidden installations emerge. Railgun platforms rose from beneath desert sands. Missile silos, decades old, opened along mountain ranges. Sir, Zara called again, desperation in her tone. Ground forces report new contacts. The humans are deploying mechanized infantry. The video feed revealed what appeared to be crude mechanical walkers, barely twice the height of a human. Vix almost laughed. Surely these primitive machines were no match for Centaur heavy armor. His amusement died as one of the walkers engaged. Its movements were impossibly fast. Arms transformed into weapon systems, shifting faster than Centaur targeting computers could track. Within seconds, the walker reduced a heavy Centaur unit, pride of their ground forces, to a heap of burning metal. Meet the Chimera battle frames, Patel announced cheerfully. Quantum computers running predictive combat algorithms, powered by miniature fusion reactors. Want a demonstration of their full capabilities? Before Vix could respond, hundreds more battle frames emerged. Some launched from underwater bases the Centaur scans had dismissed as marine research stations. Others dropped from high-altitude pods masquerading as cargo aircraft. Casualties mounting across all sectors, Krill shouted. Ground forces report 70% losses. The humans aren't just defeating us. They're systematically destroying our ability to retreat. A second salvo from the orbital grid obliterated another wave of Centaur ships. Those attempting faster-than-light jumps found their drives mysteriously failing. Viral code, Nash explained casually. Courtesy of Patel's teams. Funny, isn't it? We genuinely wanted peaceful contact with alien civilizations. We've been broadcasting welcome messages for decades, but we also planned for the possibility that our first visitors might not come in peace. Vix watched helplessly as his once mighty fleet disintegrated. The humans' primitive systems had been a ruse, hiding a network of interlocking defenses decades, if not centuries, in the making. Final analysis, Zara reported, her voice hollow. The humans possess technological parity or superiority in multiple areas. Their defense grid is unparalleled, and their combat doctrine, she hesitated, searching for words, suggests they've been preparing for this exact scenario, Vix finished for her. His claws dug deeper into the console. They weren't revealing their capabilities. They were reading ours, probing weaknesses and adjusting strategies in real time. The inevitable victory shuddered as another wave of relativistic projectiles tore through its compromised shields. Alarms blared as multiple decks reported catastrophic damage. Now then, Commander Talon, Nash said, her voice a mixture of triumph and steel. Shall we discuss your surrender terms? I believe you'll find our conditions reasonable, all things considered. For the first time in his storied career, Vix Talon hesitated. Launch the reserve forces, he commanded, desperation creeping into his voice. All remaining ground units, converge on their command centers. Sir, Zara protested, our forces are already at their breaking point. Perhaps we should consider Commander Nash's. The Centauri Dominion does not surrender to primitives, Vix roared, slamming all four hands onto his console. Launch everything we have. The last wave of Centaur forces charged forward, throwing all they had at human defenses, plasma cannons, energy weapons, even sonic disruptors. Lieutenant Patel laughed over the open channel. Now this is just embarrassing. Commander Nash, permission to demonstrate why we call this task force Chimera. Permission granted, Nash replied. Show them what combined arms warfare really means. Vix had dismissed the term combined arms warfare during his research of human strategies, assuming it primitive. Now he witnessed its terrifying reality. Human aircraft swooped low, their electronic warfare suites disabling Centaur targeting systems. Ground-based EMP generators created corridors of chaos where technology failed. Battle frames moved with lethal precision, exploiting every gap. "They're herding our forces into kill zones," Krill shouted. "Every time we adapt, they switch tactics. It's as if they know our doctrine better than we do." A new type of human vessel emerged from underwater bases. Their hulls bent light around them, rendering them nearly invisible. These ships launched missiles that twisted through the air in physically impossible patterns, striking weak points that Centaur formations didn't know existed. "Fascinating, isn't it?" Nash commented. "Your species relies on overwhelming force, single solutions applied with brute power. Humans, however, specialize in interlocking systems. Every weapon complements another. Every tactic feeds into a larger strategy." Vix's ground forces crumbled. Snipers eliminated spread-out units with rifles that seemed to predict movement. Clustered troops fell to precisely calibrated fuel-air explosives. "Lieutenant Zara," Vix said quietly, defeated, "how many weapon systems are the humans employing against us?" Zara's tentacles trembled as she worked furiously at her console. Commander Vix Talon stood amidst the flickering chaos of his flagship's bridge. The once pristine, inevitable victory, now a battered shadow of its former glory. Emergency lighting bathed the space in ominous red hues, casting distorted shadows of his crew as they worked frantically to stabilize what little remained of their systems. "Sir," Lieutenant Zara began, her voice trembling as her tentacles moved with anxious precision over the tactical console. "Our analysis is complete. The humans are currently deploying 73 distinct categories of weaponry against us." 73, Vix echoed, disbelief clawing at his voice. "And," Zara continued, her voice a whisper, "they appear to be introducing new ones every time we develop countermeasures for the existing ones." The tactical display flashed as another Centauri ship succumbed to Earth's orbital defense grid. Yet this time, Vix noticed something peculiar about the debris pattern. His secondary heart sank. "They're not trying to destroy us anymore," he muttered, dread seeping into his tone. "They're disabling us, testing different configurations, learning our vulnerabilities." From the command console, Commander Talon Nash's voice returned with infuriating calmness. "Very astute, Commander Vix. We could have annihilated your fleet in the first salvo, but this way is much more valuable. You see, this isn't just a battle for us. It's a live-fire exercise." The bridge fell silent as the realization settled over Vix and his crew. They weren't fighting for survival against a primitive species desperate to fend off an invasion. They were pawns in a meticulously orchestrated test, their every move cataloged, their every weakness exploited and recorded. "This was no accidental victory," Major Krill whispered, breaking the silence. "We walked into a trap." "Sir," Zara interjected, her eyes glued to the console, "new data suggests—" She hesitated, the words catching in her throat. "Out with it," Vix snapped. "This isn't even their primary defense force. The task force we're facing is a rapid response unit. Their main battle groups remain in reserve." The weight of her words crushed the air from Vix's lungs. "This wasn't their best effort?" Major Krill let out a hollow, hysterical laugh. "All this, and they haven't even brought out their full strength." "To be fair," Nash cut in, her voice tinged with wry amusement, "we did warn you. That meeting in Switzerland, our diplomats tried to explain the consequences of violating interstellar law. But you dismissed them. You should have paid attention." Vix gritted his teeth, his four hands clenching the command rail. His pride as a commander of the Centauri Dominion, the conqueror of 17 worlds, was crumbling under the weight of Nash's words. The inevitable victory shuddered again as another precise strike disabled its main power core. Vix turned toward Zara, who approached the command platform with an unusually somber expression. "Sir," she said, "the humans have transmitted their terms. They are offering medical assistance for our wounded and technical support to restore FTL capabilities to our damaged ships." Vix's secondary mouth twisted into a bitter smile. "How generous of them. They cripple us, humiliate us, then offered to help us limp home. Nash's face reappeared on the main display, her expression calm and unreadable. Generosity isn't the point, Commander. It's strategy. We're ensuring the Centauri Dominion remembers this encounter, not just as a defeat, but as a lesson. Next time you might choose diplomacy over conquest. Vix stared at her, searching for any sign of deceit. Why let us return at all? Why not destroy us completely? Because annihilation doesn't serve our goals, Nash replied. Humanity has spent centuries preparing for first contact. We developed weapons, yes, but we also developed protocols for peaceful coexistence, the choice of which to use was always yours. On the displays, Vix watched human engineers and battle frames assisting his crippled fleet. They stabilized damaged ships and treated Centauri wounded with the same precision they had used to destroy his forces. Your message to High Command, Nash continued, will include a detailed account of this engagement. It will showcase our capabilities, certainly, but it will also include evidence of our willingness to extend a hand in peace. What your leaders do with that information is up to them. Vix felt a mix of shame and awe as he watched the humans at work. They had not only outclassed the Dominion militarily, they had done so with an elegance and restraint that turned humiliation into a bitter lesson. Major Krill, Nash added with a faint smile, please tell your engineers to pay attention. Our teams are currently teaching them how to prevent future cyber vulnerabilities. Consider it a farewell gift. As Nash's image faded, Vix returned to the half-finished report on his console. He deleted it and began anew. To the Centauri High Command, I must report not only the failure of our invasion, but a complete re-evaluation of our understanding of interstellar civilizations. The species known as humans possess technological sophistication beyond our estimates, military doctrine that transforms apparent weakness into overwhelming strength, and a capacity for diplomacy that renders brute force obsolete. Their planet is not a backwater world ripe for conquest. It is a fortress, hidden beneath the guise of simplicity. More importantly, their victory over us was not born of mere strength, but of preparation and adaptability. We encountered warriors who had spent generations crafting strategies for this exact moment. Masters of deception who turned our arrogance into their most effective weapon. The inevitable victory limped away from Earth, escorted by the remnants of Vix's once proud fleet. As they prepared for the jump to FTL, Vix cast one final glance at the tactical display. Earth's defense platforms were already reconfiguring, concealing themselves once again beneath their facade of civilian infrastructure. How many other seemingly primitive worlds, Vix wondered aloud, are fortresses in disguise? How many other species have learned to weaponize humility and patience? As the stars stretched into lines carrying the Dominion survivors home, Earth remained behind, silent, vigilant, and prepared for the next would-be conqueror to make the same fatal mistake.